Welcome. My name is Bryce Rafferty, and I am a staff attorney at the Colorado Cross Disability Coalition. Here in this presentation, we will be exploring Medicaid Buy-In, Colorado's Medicaid program tailored for working adults with disabilities whose income and resources exceed traditional and restrictive Medicaid financial eligibility limitations. Medicaid Buy-In represents an historic step that further integrates certain people with disabilities into mainstream society by permitting them to have a significant degree of financial independence despite their high levels of specialized care needs. To understand this program's importance, we will first discover Medicaid's origins and purpose and why it matters so much for people with disabilities. Then, we will explore Medicaid's evolution over the years, which facilitated the integration of people with disabilities into community settings. Finally, we will discuss how and why Medicaid Buy-In continues a decades-long American movement of increasing independence for people with disabilities to both live and thrive in the community. Let's get into it. When people think of Medicaid, there's a lot of confusion about who it serves and why. Originally, Medicaid was a key program in President Lyndon Johnson's War on Poverty and Great Society initiative. In his 1964 State of the Union address, President Johnson framed this movement as a moral and economic imperative for the country, which was then reeling from a 22% poverty rate, twice that of today. Systemic and institutionalized racial segregation and marginalization of the most vulnerable populations, particularly impoverished people with disabilities, were key issues. The Great Society Initiative facilitated programs to combat systemic poverty and racial injustice in education, housing, civil rights, economic opportunity, and healthcare. These programs involved everything from affirmative action for government contractors to significant congressional legislation. During this time, Congress promulgated the Civil Rights Act, the Economic Opportunity Act, the Food Stamp Act, and the Medicaid Act. Medicaid was specifically designed as a dual-funded federal and state partnership program, providing healthcare services and supports for the poorest and most vulnerable populations, including people with disabilities. Congress recognized that people with disabilities were marginalized from mainstream society, and they wanted to ensure that those who are disabled and whose income and resources are insufficient are not denied access to necessary medical care. So, Medicaid's foundational approach to helping people with disabilities was to protect them from the combination of poverty, lack of health care, and societal exclusion. To do this, Medicaid provides people with disabilities access to basic medical care like hospital and primary care services. But because of its roots in the war on poverty, traditional Medicaid eligibility requires impoverishment, which is in turn measured by income, assets, and working capacity. In other words, Medicaid eligibility is predicated on a person's disability, preventing them from working enough to pay for basic living expenses. The primary path to Medicaid eligibility is by qualifying for disability-related monthly cash benefits from the Social Security Administration. These are called Supplemental Security Income, or SSI, or Social Security Disability Insurance, or SSDI. Eligibility for both benefits entails strict financial limitations and a determination of disability. Financial limitations include monthly and annual income ceilings. SSI, but not SSDI, measures assets or financial resources, which make up all the money and value to a person's name, with certain exceptions for things like a car and a home. SSI has an asset limit of $2,000 for individuals and $3,000 for married couples. SSDI does not have asset limits. Social Security's definition of disability is based on the inability to earn income. Disability is defined as the physical or mental impairment that is the primary reason that a person is unable to engage in any quote-unquote substantial gainful activity. Substantial gainful activity is a federally determined earnings limitation. For example, in 2025, a person's disability must prevent them from being able to make $1,620 a month or more. If you qualify for SSI benefits, you automatically qualify for Medicaid. People with SSDI and no SSI often qualify for Medicaid through a home and community-based waiver. Even if you don't receive Social Security cash benefits, state Medicaid enrollment procedures are nearly identical in terms of their financial limitations and disability determinations. Medicaid's association with poverty is particularly important because it is the only insurance in America that provides indefinite long-term care services for people with disabilities needing nursing facility levels of care. From 1965 to 1981, Medicaid did not cover payments for long-term care outside of institutionalized settings. This prevented people with disabilities from living in community. Congress amended the Medicaid Act in 1981 to address this by adding Section 1915C. This section allows for states to apply for Medicaid waiver programs, which provide nursing facility levels of healthcare services in community settings like homes and apartments. These services are aptly named Home and Community-Based Services, or HCBS. Waivers also allow states to modify financial eligibility criteria, including for working adults with disabilities. To this day, Medicaid is the exclusive provider of home and community-based services. These services include personal care, non-medical transportation, respite services, and more. Medicaid also covers all medical care, including equipment like wheelchairs. Medicaid home and community-based services waivers finally opened the door for people with disabilities to move out of nursing facilities and into the community if they wanted to. And they did. In 1988, only 12% of Medicaid long-term care funds were spent on people with disabilities living independently in communities. But by 2019, that percentage grew from 12 to 60%. However, until recently, there was one big obstacle for people with disabilities needing home and community-based services to live independently in community settings. Again, to be eligible for traditional Medicaid, poverty was required. So, if people with disabilities receiving Medicaid home and community-based services wanted to stay out of a nursing facility, they could not work and they could not save money. This meant that people with disabilities had to live in Section 8 housing or other special housing arrangements and remain impoverished, usually living off monthly SSI or SSDI payments and receiving food stamps. This irony has plagued the community of people with disabilities for decades. How did the federal government set out to integrate people with disabilities into mainstream society in 1981, but not take their financial independence into consideration, along with their living situation? Well, the answer came in 1999, the same year as the famous Olmstead decision by the Supreme Court that issued an quote-unquote integration mandate for state Medicaid programs to provide financially feasible resources that facilitated community integration for people with disabilities who desired it. In 1999, Congress also enacted legislation which created the Ticket to Work program, enabling state Medicaid programs to offer significant eligibility changes for working adults with disabilities. The state of Colorado initiated the Colorado Buy-In program for working adults with disabilities in 2012, which permits Coloradans with disabilities to receive critical Medicaid and HCBS benefits and generate income well above traditional Social Security limitations. The Buy-In program allows working adults with disabilities to make up to 450% of the federal poverty level, or FPL. The FPL is annually determined by the Department of Health and Human Services and is used as an eligibility benchmark for many income-based public welfare programs. The Buy-In program allows Medicaid members to possess savings accounts and other resources that previously would have counted against them and sabotaged their Medicaid eligibility. Much like a private insurance plan, people with disabilities on the Medicaid Buy-In program must pay a monthly premium, but the premium is on a sliding scale relative to their income. See the chart provided for reference. While traditional Medicaid eligibility relies on a person's SSI or SSDI benefits, because those benefits are predicated on a determination of disability by the Social Security Administration, working adults with disabilities enrolled in Medicaid Buy-In usually make and save too much money to qualify for SSI or SSDI benefits. Therefore, Medicaid Buy-In enrollees require a separate disability determination by the state, unless they have an active disability determination through the Social Security Administration from a prior period of SSI or SSDI enrollment. Colorado has outsourced these separate disability determinations to a third-party vendor called ARG, located in Pennsylvania. Medicaid Buy-In applicants must fill out and submit a disability determination and have it approved by ARG prior to their Social Security disability determination expiring or prior to being approved for the Buy-In program. Applicants who are on SSI or SSDI should first consult their local Social Security office and inquire about their diary date or determination of disability date. If still active, an applicant may present that Social Security disability determination as proof of their disability until it expires. But once it expires, they will have to complete an ARG application. Please consult the resources section for information regarding points of contact, including your Medicaid case manager, local Social Security office, and the Medicaid Buy-In website. For me, the Medicaid Buy-In program has been instrumental in my 16-year path of recovery after a shallow water diving accident left me a C6 quadriplegic back in 2009. I have required and depended on home and community-based services in Colorado ever since I was injured at the beginning of what should have been my junior year of college. By the time I graduated disabled in 2012, the Buy-In program gave me hope and the opportunity to chase my dreams of becoming a disability rights attorney. Without having this program in place, I would not have been able to pursue this legal path. And while it's not a perfect program because it caps allowable income into perpetuity, it has assured me that I continue to receive critical healthcare benefits and other critical services so that I can continue my advocacy efforts here in Colorado for the most vulnerable populations. Perhaps one day soon, I'll be able to influence this program itself. By that time, I hope to see you out and about in the community.